Madeline Hart had barely opened her eyes when the cold sting of reality sliced through the dim hospital room. Her body still trembled from the brutal delivery of 3 premature babies, their tiny cries echoing faintly down the hall. Tubes and monitors surrounded her, but nothing felt as suffocating as the tall, immaculately dressed man standing at the foot of her bed, her husband, Connor Reeves. He didn't smile. He didn't ask how she felt. He didn't even look at the infants who had fought to breathe just minutes earlier. Instead, Connor placed a thick folder onto her bedside table, the snap of the leather cover striking the air like a whip. "Sign it," he said, voice smooth, detached, as if discussing a business contract instead of their marriage. "Our agreement is over. I can't build my future with this kind of instability." TK bro. Madeline stared at him, vision blurred, unsure whether it was the medication or the heartbreak fracturing her chest. She searched his face for any trace of the man she once loved, the man who whispered promises under Manhattan skylines, who pressed her hands against his heart and swore she would never face the world alone. But the man before her now was a stranger. Behind the glass window stood Sutton Blake, her former friend, now Connor's polished companion. The small smirk on Sutton's lips confirmed everything Madeline feared. They had planned this. They were waiting for her weakest moment. A nurse paused at the door, eyes widening at the sight of the divorce papers. But Connor stepped aside, blocking any chance of help, any hope of dignity. Madeline felt her breath catch. Her world was collapsing in real time, her health fragile, her babies fighting for life, her marriage destroyed without warning. And as she raised a trembling hand toward the papers, something inside her cracked so deeply she wasn't sure she'd ever be whole again. But Connor had miscalculated terribly. Because someone else had seen everything, and they would not stay silent. The silence that followed Connor's footsteps was heavier than the sterile air of the postpartum ward. When the door finally clicked shut, it felt as if the world had collapsed into a narrow tunnel of pain and fluorescent light. Madeline's breath hitched as she lay helpless, her body still numb from the epidural, her mind struggling to grasp what had just happened. Just hours earlier, she had been fighting for her life. The complications from delivering triplets had nearly taken her from this world, leaving her drifting in the haze between consciousness and nothingness. She remembered the doctors shouting, the alarms blaring, and then darkness. And now, emerging from that darkness, she was greeted not by comfort or love, but by betrayal delivered with corporate precision. A nurse entered quietly, her expression a mixture of pity and outrage. "Mrs. Reeves, Madeline, are you all right? Should I call someone for you?" Madeline tried to speak, but her throat felt raw. All she could manage was a weak shake of her head. She didn't want anyone else to see her fall apart. "Not yet." The nurse hesitated, then gently adjusted the blankets around her. "Your babies are stable," she whispered. "They're strong just like their mother." The words hit harder than she expected. Strong. She didn't feel strong. She felt abandoned. Connor's signature still echoed in her mind, his cold stare, his refusal to even glance at the 3 tiny lives they had created together. She remembered how he once talked about family, how he imagined teaching their children to swim at their Hamptons beach house. It all felt like a cruel joke now. Outside the room, she heard faint voices. Sutton Blake's unmistakable laugh drifted down the corridor like poisoned honey. "So it's done?" Sutton asked. "Done," Connor replied, his tone flat. "She's too fragile for the life I'm building. Reeves, capital doesn't need emotional liabilities." Emotional liabilities. Was that what she had become to him? Madeline pressed her trembling hand against her chest, feeling something inside her fracture. But Sutton's next words sliced deeper. "And the babies?" she asked casually, as if discussing the weather. Connor exhaled. "We'll deal with custody later. Right now, I need the press to see me as a responsible father. A stable image is everything before the IPO." The nurse stiffened, having overheard the conversation from the cracked door. She shot Madeline a horrified glance before quietly stepping away, as if afraid the truth might crush her further. Madeline's tears finally spilled not from weakness, but from the unbearable realization that her husband had turned her children into tools for his reputation. She wasn't just unwanted, she was disposable. But grief was quickly replaced by something else, a slow-burning ache. The kind that begins in the bones and spreads until it becomes resolve. She didn't know what her future would look like. She didn't know how she would protect her babies. All she knew was that she couldn't stay here, not in this place where her pain had become entertainment for those who wished her harm. As she tried to steady her breathing, the door opened again. But it wasn't the nurse. It was a figure she hadn't seen in years, someone no one expected to appear. And the look in his eyes said only one thing. This betrayal would not go unanswered. The man standing in the doorway wasn't a doctor, nor a nurse, nor anyone Madeline expected to see in her most fragile hour. It was Elias Grant, the senior legal advisor of Reeves Capital, a man known for his icy professionalism and legendary loyalty to Connor Reeves. If he was here, it meant something was deeply wrong, something beyond betrayal, something calculated. Elias stepped inside, closing the door quietly behind him. His face, usually unreadable as stone, held an unfamiliar tension. "Madeline, I shouldn't be here, but you deserve to know the truth before it's too late." She swallowed hard. "What truth? Isn't it enough that he left me on the day our children were born?" Elias exhaled slowly, as if battling his own conscience. "Connor didn't make this decision today. He planned your removal months ago. The moment he suspected your pregnancy would complicate the company's image during the IPO, he started preparing." Madeline's pulse faltered. "He planned this?" "Every detail," Elias confirmed. "He believed your health issues during pregnancy would make you a liability. Investors want a CEO who appears stable, controlled, untouched by personal complications." He paused. "Connor thinks suffering makes a person weak." Madeline flinched. Weak. He had always feared vulnerability, especially hers. But hearing it from someone else made the truth sting sharper. Elias continued, lowering his voice. "There's more. Sutton Blake isn't just his partner. She's been helping him manipulate media narratives for nearly a year. Every flattering article about Sutton, every subtle criticism of you, they weren't coincidences." Madeline blinked, trying to absorb the depth of it. "She was my friend," she whispered, her voice breaking. "She held my hand at my wedding. That's why she was so useful to him," Elias said softly. "People trust what comes from a familiar face." Her chest tightened. Betrayal from a husband was cruel. Betrayal from a friend was fatal. Outside, the hallway lights flickered as a cleaning cart rolled by. Life continued as though hers hadn't just been ripped apart. But Elias wasn't finished. "Connor is also facing a silent financial crisis," he said. "Reeves Capital has been losing investors for months. He blames you for the distraction, blames the pregnancy, the complications, the bed rest. He told the board that you were draining his energy, damaging his focus." Madeline felt a wave of nausea rise, so he threw me away to save himself. "He believes it's the only way forward," Elias said, "and he believes the public will side with him if you appear emotionally unstable after the divorce." A chill ran through her. So that's why the reporters outside the hospital had looked at her with such pointed curiosity. Sutton had already spun the story. She wasn't just abandoned, she was being painted as fragile, dramatic, incompetent, a liability. "Why are you telling me this?" she whispered. Elias hesitated. "Because I've seen what he's become, and because someone else, someone with far more influence than Connor, won't let him destroy you." His eyes shifted toward the window, as if expecting someone to appear. Madeline's heartbeat quickened. "Who?" Elias stepped closer. "The person who has been watching Reeves Capital's every move. The one man Connor fears more than losing his empire. I get." He leaned in, his voice barely audible. "Your father." Madeline stared at Elias, her pulse thundering in her ears. Her father? Harrison Hart, the man who had missed her high school graduation, her art exhibits, her engagement dinner, and almost every important milestone of her life, was suddenly watching over her now? It didn't make sense. "My father hasn't spoken to me in months," she whispered. "Why would he get involved now?" Elias's jaw tightened. "Because he didn't know the truth until tonight." Madeline's breath caught. She felt the room tilt slightly as the weight of exhaustion and shock pressed against her. After years of distance, silence, and cold formality, why would Harrison care now? Elias continued, "Connor thought keeping your condition private would prevent your father from interfering. But someone leaked the hospital admission report to Hart Dominion headquarters. When your father read Emergency Labor Triplets, Critical Condition, he left a board meeting mid-sentence." Madeline tried to process the idea of Harrison Hart, formidable, emotionless, always immaculate, in his tailored charcoal suits, storming out of a room because of her. It didn't fit. Not with the man she grew up with. Not with the father who demanded perfection and offered little warmth in return. "He's on his way," Elias added. "He'll be here within the hour." Madeline's chest tightened. She didn't know whether to feel relief or dread. The sound of heels clicking in the hallway broke her thoughts. The footsteps were sharp, confident, full of purpose. Sutton Blake? Her voice carried through the thin hospital walls, silk wrapped around arrogance. "I don't care how she's doing," Sutton said sharply to someone. "We need Connor ready for the press by morning. This sympathy wave she's getting online, it ends tonight." Madeline's throat constricted. The world had barely learned she had given birth, and Sutton was already strategizing her downfall. Elias shifted, glancing toward the door. "You need to understand, Connor has been preparing to remove you from the public narrative. He wants full custody, not because he loves the children, but because it maintains his image as a devoted, single father launching a historic IPO. Madeline closed her eyes, forcing back tears. She remembered the promises Connor made during the early days of their marriage, the gentle touches, the whispered dreams, the dinners overlooking the Manhattan skyline. How had all of that become this? "Your father knows about the IPO manipulation," Elias said quietly. "He knows Connor falsified projections. He knows about the debts hidden in the subsidiary accounts. Connor's collapse is coming, and your father intends to accelerate it." Madeline's eyelids fluttered open. Harrison Hart never did anything without purpose. If he was stepping into this war, the battlefield was about to shift. A faint beeping from the newborn ward echoed through the hall, pulling her attention. Her babies, their fragile little bodies, their uncertain future. Elias moved closer, his expression softening. "Madeline, you have more power than you think. Reeves Capital is built on the illusion that you are replaceable, that you have no allies, that your father won't act. But Connor miscalculated, badly." Madeline swallowed, her hand trembling as it brushed the edge of her blanket. "What? What happens now?" Elias hesitated. "Now? Harrison will confront Connor, and Connor will realize the one person he underestimated is the only person who can destroy him." Madeline's heart pounded. A sudden knock echoed against the door. Not Sutton, not a nurse. A deep, authoritative voice spoke through the heavy wood, one she hadn't heard in years. "Madeline, it's your father. Open the door." Madeline could barely lift her head when her father entered the room. Harrison Hart, an imposing figure with silver hair, a tailored navy coat, and the silent authority of a man accustomed to reshaping empires, paused at the foot of her bed. For a moment, he simply looked at her. Not with the cold appraisal she remembered from childhood, but with something heavier, something almost like regret. "Madeline," he said quietly, "I've been blind. I should have been here sooner." She blinked. The words felt unreal coming from him. Harrison Hart never apologized. Not to board members, not to enemies. Certainly not to family. But she was too exhausted, too broken to absorb it. Her body trembled from the trauma of birth, betrayal, and now the weight of her father's unexpected presence. "I can't stay in New York," she whispered, her voice cracking. "Not like this." Harrison stepped closer. "You're not staying here another hour. I've arranged a private transport, medical staff, security, everything you and the children need." Madeline winced as she tried to shift. "I can't fight him right now, Father. I don't even have the strength to stand." "You don't need strength," he replied. "You just need time." She looked away, her chest tightening with humiliation. "Connor thinks I'm weak. Sutton is already setting the narrative. They're destroying me in the press. I saw the headlines, 'Troubled wife struggles after difficult pregnancy.' They want the world to believe I'm unstable. And the world will believe it," Harrison said bluntly. "If you stay here..." He wasn't being cruel, he was being honest. That was his way. Madeline felt tears burn her eyes. For the first time since the delivery, she allowed herself to cry, not out of fear, but out of the realization that she had nowhere left to stand. Harrison watched, his expression tight. Then, unexpectedly, he reached out and placed a hand on her shoulder. "Let me fix this," he said. "Come with me. Recover. When you're ready, we'll face him together." His voice carried an assurance only power could give, but it wasn't his influence she needed. It was escape. A nurse wheeled in a small bassinet containing her 3 delicate babies. The sight of them, tiny faces, tiny fists, fighting for life, broke something open inside her. "I don't want them to grow up here," she whispered. "Not in a world where their father treats people like assets." Harrison nodded. "Then we leave tonight." The plan moved quickly, as if the universe had been waiting for her to say those words. Harrison's security team escorted her through a private service corridor normally used for hospital vendors. No reporters saw her. No staff questioned her departure. In less than 30 minutes, Madeline was secured inside a long black SUV, her infant safely strapped beside her, oxygen tubes gently humming. As the vehicle began moving, she watched the hospital fade behind her, a place of birth, death, and betrayal. She felt like a ghost leaving her own life. New York's skyline glittered in the distance, cold and indifferent. She didn't know where her father was taking her. She didn't care. All she wanted was silence, space, a chance to breathe. But just as they crossed the bridge out of Manhattan, Harrison's phone buzzed. His eyes hardened as he read the message. He turned to her, voice grim. "Madeline, Connor just filed an emergency motion." She froze. "For what?" Harrison lowered the phone. "He's trying to take the babies." Tonight, Madeline felt her heartbeat stumble as her father's words sank in. Connor was trying to take the babies. Tonight, before she even had a chance to hold them properly. The SUV swerved slightly as Harrison barked instructions to his security team. "Reroute, increase speed, and get 4 additional guards on standby." His voice was sharp, controlled, yet beneath it, a thread of panic trembled. For a man like Harrison Hart, panic was rare. That alone terrified Madeline. She stared at her infants, 3 tiny chests, rising and falling rhythmically inside their temperature-controlled bassinets. The thought of Connor, of Sutton, anywhere near them sent a shiver down her spine. "Why is he doing this?" she whispered, clutching the blanket draped over her legs. Harrison glanced at her briefly. "Because if he gets custody, he controls the narrative. A single father, abandoned by his unstable wife, it's the PR story he needs." His jaw tightened, and the board of Reeves Capital will rally behind him. Madeline closed her eyes. The pain, both physical and emotional, rose like a wave she couldn't hold back. "I can't fight him like this," she murmured. "I can't even sit up without help." Her father's voice softened, losing its usual steel. "You don't have to fight him now. You need to survive. We'll protect the children legally and physically until you're ready." But Madeline wasn't listening anymore. The adrenaline spike had drained what little strength she had left. Her breathing grew shallow, her vision blurry. She clutched the edge of the seat as her chest tightened painfully. "Dad, I don't feel right." Harrison immediately leaned toward her. "Stay with me, Madeline. Focus on my voice." But her body was shutting down. The trauma of childbirth, the blood loss, the emotional shock, everything collided at once. The SUV interior spun in slow, sickening circles. A medic riding in the front seat heard the commotion and climbed into the back. "She's crashing. Oxygen, now." Dollars Abgang. Madeline felt the mask press against her face as cold air rushed in. But even breathing felt like drowning. Her arms trembled uncontrollably. I don't want to die," she gasped. "My babies, they need me." "You're not dying," Harrison growled, though fear darkened his eyes. "I'm not losing you, not again." The medic checked her vitals, shaking his head. Her blood pressure's dropping. She needs a controlled environment. "We have to stop." "We cannot stop," Harrison barked. "Connor's people will catch up. You know what that means." Madeline barely heard them. Her mind drifted to her children, tiny and innocent, faces blurred through her tears. She had carried them for months, endured complications, accepted every needle, every risk. She couldn't lose them now, not to Connor, not to fate. Her throat tightened as another wave of dizziness crashed through her. I can't breathe." The medic injected something into her IV line. "Stay awake, Madeline. Fight. Wells nauseous." But her strength was slipping like sand through her fingers. Her eyelids fluttered. Her head fell to the side. "Madeline," her father shouted, gripping her shoulders. "Don't you dare leave them. Don't you dare leave me." Her world dimmed into a narrow tunnel of light, her pulse fading in her ears. Then everything went black. The medic pressed his fingers to her neck and looked up sharply. "Sir, she's unconscious. And we're losing time. And when presence. Harrison stared through the darkened window, jaw clenched, eyes burning. They had no choice. He gave the order. Take her to the one man who can keep her alive. Madeline drifted in and out of consciousness as the SUV sped through the night. She didn't know where they were going, or even if she was still alive. Her mind floated between images, her baby's fragile faces, Connor's cold eyes, Sutton's triumphant smile, each one cutting deeper than the last. The SUV finally stopped. She felt herself being lifted, voices blending with the hum of engines and the rustle of coastal wind. Wherever they were, it wasn't a hospital. It smelled like cedar, ocean salt, and something faintly familiar she couldn't place. Move her carefully, someone commanded. It wasn't her father's voice. It was deeper, warmer, annoyed, yet edged with worry. Madeline forced her eyes open, struggling to anchor herself. The world swam into view, a high-ceilinged room, soft golden lighting, walls lined with abstract art, and towering windows overlooking dark waves crashing against cliffs. She knew this place. Or rather, she knew of the man who owned it. Noah, she whispered faintly. Noah Kingsley, her father's most trusted ally, though she hadn't seen him in nearly a decade. A self-made tech investor, a name whispered in the corridors of power, a man with enough influence to make CEOs nervous and governments cautious. He was also the one person who had cared for her long before Connor Reeves ever knew she existed. Noah stepped to her side, sleeves rolled, eyes sharp with barely contained urgency. Madeline, hey, look at me, stay awake. His voice traveled through her like a tether, pulling her back from the abyss. He looked older than she remembered. Broader shoulders, defined jaw, the same intense dark eyes that once made her stomach flutter. She had forgotten those eyes, forgotten how deeply they saw her. He turned toward the medic. What's her BP? Low and dropping, the medic replied. She needs stabilization, fluids, and rest. Emotional trauma is compounding the shock. Noah muttered a curse under his breath, then lifted her hand gently, as though afraid she might break. You shouldn't have been alone through this, he said softly. Not then. And not now. Madeline tried to speak, but her voice cracked. My babies. They're here, Noah assured her. Safe. Your father brought all three. They're in the nursery down the hall, monitored, protected. Tears pooled in her eyes, relief mingling with exhaustion. She tried to sit up, but Noah placed a firm hand on her shoulder. Don't. You've lost too much blood. Rest first. End quote. Her father entered then, his stern face lined with fatigue. Noah has the best medical staff in the state on standby, he said. You're safe here. Madeline looked between them, the father who never showed up until now, and the man who once silently loved her from a distance. The contrast struck her painfully. Why? Why bring me to him? She whispered. Harrison exhaled slowly. Because he's the only person I trust to protect you from Connor. Noah's jaw tightened. Reeves made a move tonight. Trying to seize custody while you were unconscious? That's not desperation. That's a man preparing for war. Madeline's pulse trembled. She suddenly felt smaller, more fragile than ever. I have nothing left to fight with. Noah leaned closer, brushing a strand of hair from her face with surprising tenderness. You have more than you think, but right now, you need to recover. Rest, heal. When you're ready, we'll take everything back together. If you want to jest. His voice held something steady, unshakable, something she hadn't felt in a long time. Safety. But just as her eyes fluttered closed, one of Noah's security staff rushed into the room, breathless, pale. Sir, you need to see this immediately. It's all over the news. Noah frowned. What is? The guard swallowed hard. Connor just announced you abandoned your children. Two brus. If you, as is all 10 dover. The headlines spread across every major news network, each one echoing the same damning narrative. Madeline Reeves abandons newborn triplets. Sources say she fled state. Madeline felt the words like a blow to the chest. Her hands trembled as Noah placed the tablet face down on the bed, refusing to let her torture herself with more. But she had already seen enough. The photographs of Connor outside a courthouse, Sutton at his side with a carefully crafted expression of concern, reporters swarming them like vultures. He planned this, she whispered, her voice cracking. He waited until I was unconscious, until I had no way to defend myself. Noah's jaw tightened. He's counting on you being too weak to respond. That's how men like him operate. They strike when you're wounded. Thanks for watching. Harrison stood near the window, his silhouette framed against the ocean. Connor's petition argues that you are mentally unstable postpartum, he said stiffly. That you fled in a state of emotional collapse. Madeline felt her breath catch. He's trying to take everything from me. Noah stepped forward. And he thinks he already has. She looked up at him, then noticing the way his eyes softened when they met hers, the way he changed his tone when speaking to her. He had always been that way, even when they were younger and barely more than two strangers crossing paths at fundraisers. She hadn't understood it then. Now, she saw it with painful clarity. He cared, and he was furious. Madeline, Noah said gently, sitting beside her, you may not feel strong right now. Your body is healing, your mind is exhausted, but none of this makes you weak. It makes you human. And unlike Connor, you don't build your life on lies. If you are case, his words steadied her breath, if only for a moment. She looked toward the nursery door, where soft lights glowed behind frosted glass. I need to protect my children, but I don't know how. Not like this. Not when I can barely lift them. Noah exchanged a glance with her father before replying. Then we rebuild you, piece by piece, at your pace. Harrison nodded. You will stay here off-grid. Heal, train, prepare. Connor expects a broken woman to crawl back. We will give him the opposite. Wasage takes is wasadrang. Madeline almost laughed, though tears blurred her vision. Train? For what? For war, Harrison said simply. Over the next weeks, the world believed she had disappeared. In reality, Madeline was undergoing the most intense transformation of her life. Therapists helped her rebuild her emotional footing. Physicians oversaw her physical recovery. Noah coached her through financial strategies, how to read a balance sheet with a single glance, how to dissect a corporate shell structure, how to predict a hostile takeover before it surfaced. She absorbed everything like a sponge starved for water. Each morning, she felt a little stronger. Each evening, she felt a little less broken. And every time Noah watched her from across the room, admiration flickered beneath the surface, quiet, respectful, steady, something she had never been given by any man before. One night, after reviewing a set of confidential documents exposing Connor's illegal accounting, Noah placed a hand over hers. You're not the woman he abandoned anymore, he murmured. You're becoming someone far more dangerous. Madeline felt something unfamiliar bloom in her chest hope. But before she could respond, Harrison burst into the study, his face pale, voice sharp. Turn on the news. Now. Important. Noah grabbed the remote, switching channels until the breaking alert filled the screen. Madeline's breath froze. Connor Reeves has just accused you of kidnapping your own children. The accusation hit like a bomb. Madeline Reeves kidnaps her own children, exclusive investigation underway. The headline flashed across every major network, followed by footage of Connor standing solemnly on the courthouse steps. Cameras swarmed him as he spoke into microphones with carefully practiced grief. My children were taken without my knowledge, he said, voice trembling just enough to seem authentic. I'm cooperating fully with authorities to bring them home safely. I pray their mother receives the help she desperately needs. Sutton stood behind him, dabbing at dry eyes with a tissue for effect. Madeline watched the broadcast from Noah's private study, her hands cold, her breath unsteady. He's turning the world against me, she whispered. He's twisting everything. Noah muted the screen, his jaw taut with fury. He's desperate. False accusations mean he's running out of ways to control the narrative. Harrison paced across the room, his polished shoes echoing against the hardwood. This is no longer just PR. Connor wants a federal case. If kidnapping charges stick, he gains full custody and destroys your credibility permanently. Thank you for watching. The panic inside Madeline grew like wildfire. I didn't kidnap my children. I'm their mother. I saved them. Noah knelt beside her chair, his expression softening. And you will prove it, but not from hiding. Madeline looked at him, confused. What are you saying? I'm saying it's time to stop running, Noah replied. If you stay hidden, the world believes his story. But if you show up alive, strong, in full control, you shatter his lie in one blow. Her father crossed his arms. The The board members of Reeves Capital are already nervous. Public pressure will destabilize the company. If Madeline appears, it forces them to question Connor's leadership. Madeline swallowed. Her throat felt tight, but not from fear this time, from awakening resolve. For weeks she had rebuilt herself physically, emotionally, strategically. She had learned the architecture of corporate power, the mechanics behind media manipulation, the quiet art of turning panic into advantage. But stepping into the public eye again, that required a kind of strength she wasn't sure she possessed. Noah seemed to read her hesitation. "You won't face them alone," he said. "I'll be beside you, and your father will handle the legal counterstrike." Madeline glanced toward the nursery. Through the frosted glass, she saw the faint movements of her sleeping children. They had no idea the world outside was tearing itself apart in their name. She straightened her spine. "What do I need to do?" "For starters," Noah said, "you show yourself in New York. Not broken, not hiding. You return with dignity and let the world decide who looks like the unstable one." Harrison nodded. "We'll arrange secure transport, media preparation, legal advisors. It's time to reclaim your name." Madeline inhaled deeply. For the first time since the hospital, she felt present, alive, ready. The next morning, she stood before the mirror, wearing a simple cream-colored coat, her hair softly curled, her posture unwavering. Vulnerability still lived behind her eyes, but it no longer defined her. Strength did. Noah stepped into the doorway, his breath catching slightly as he saw her. "You're ready." She nodded. "Let's go home." But just as they headed toward the waiting car, Noah's phone buzzed urgently. He checked the screen, and his expression darkened into something sharp, dangerous. Madeline froze. "What happened?" Noah lifted his gaze to hers, voice low. "Connor knows you're coming back. And he's setting a trap in Manhattan." Madeline had imagined returning to New York, quietly slipping into the city like a shadow, reclaiming her narrative through measured steps. But the moment Noah revealed Connor's trap, she understood one thing clearly. If Connor wanted a battlefield, she would choose the arena. And nothing was more public, more merciless, or more scrutinized than the annual Meridian Foundation Gala at the Plaza Hotel. It was where billionaires paraded their power, where whispers could move markets, where reputations were built or destroyed under chandelier light. It was also where Connor planned to unveil his grieving single father image, fully cementing his custody case. Harrison secured Madeline an invitation under a different name. Noah handled the logistics, security, transport, timing, while Madeline prepared for the most difficult night of her life. When the doors of the plaza's ballroom opened, the room erupted in a sea of diamonds, champagne, and murmured speculation. Tall arrangements of white orchids lined the marble steps. A string quartet played near the grand staircase. Cameras flashed like lightning. Connor stood at the center of it all. Handsome, polished, wearing a black tailored tuxedo and a mask of solemn nobility. Beside him, Sutton Blake draped herself in a backless emerald gown, her hand positioned delicately on his arm like a queen, ready to console a wounded king. The press hung onto his every movement. "Mr. Reeves, any update on your missing children? Do you believe Madeline is stable enough to care for them?" Connor sighed heavily, lowering his eyes. "I'm praying she gets the help she needs." The sympathy in the room swelled like a tide. Sutton leaned closer to whisper in his ear, her lips curving into a victor's smile. And then, the crowd shifted. Heads turned. Voices hushed. Madeline entered. She wore a sleek ivory gown, simple yet devastatingly elegant, paired with a soft velvet wrap that framed her shoulders. Her hair cascaded down her back in loose waves. She moved slowly but confidently, supported by none other than Noah Kingsley, who walked at her side with protective certainty. She didn't look like a woman who had fled. She didn't look unstable. She didn't look broken. She looked reborn. A ripple ran through the ballroom. Shock, disbelief, curiosity. Reporters swarmed instantly. "My God, is that Madeline? She looks incredible. Didn't they say she was hospitalized? Who's the man with her?" Connor's face drained of color. Sutton stiffened, her grip tightening on his arm. Now leaned in slightly, whispering so only Madeline could hear. "You're the story now, not him." Madeline lifted her chin, steadying her breath. She hadn't come to intimidate. She hadn't come to gloat. She came because she refused to let Connor define her. Not anymore. The press rushed toward her, microphones extended. "Madeline, where have you been hiding? Did you abandon your children? How do you respond to the kidnapping allegations?" Madeline's heart pounded, but her voice didn't shake. "My children were never unsafe," she said calmly, "and I have never run from them. I was recovering from a medical emergency. Any claims otherwise are lies." Gasps echoed, cameras clicked furiously. Connor lunged forward, panic cracking through his polished exterior. "Madeline, what are you doing here? You're not well. You shouldn't be." Madeline stepped back, refusing to let him touch her. The crowd watched electric, hungry, enthralled. Then Harrison Hart entered behind her. Executives noticed immediately. Board members froze. Investors whispered. No one had expected Harrison himself to appear. And Connor knew, in that instant, that the tides were turning. But before Madeline could speak again, a security guard approached Noah, whispering urgently in his ear. Noah's expression darkened. "Madeline," he said quietly, "we have a problem." She turned, pulse sharp. "What happened?" His voice was low, dangerous. "Someone just breached the nursery where your babies are supposed to be safe." The music inside the gala fell into a strange, suspended quiet as Noah's words sank in. Someone had breached the nursery. For a moment, the chandelier lights above seemed to flicker, blurring into streaks of gold as panic shot through Madeline's veins. Her babies, her fragile, premature infants left under the care of trained staff, hidden away in a secure wing of Noah's estate, were now in danger. "Noah, what do you mean breached?" she whispered urgently, her breath trembling. Before he could answer, Harrison stepped forward, his voice low and commanding. "Explain, now." "If you got Heather." Noah's security lead approached, keeping his head down so the surrounding guests wouldn't overhear. "Sir, our surveillance triggered an alert 20 minutes ago. Someone attempted to bypass the biometric lock. The system locked down the room and initiated protocol. But Connor knows that location," Noah finished grimly. "Or someone close to him does." Madeline felt her knees weaken. "I need to go. I have to go now." Noah caught her arm gently but firmly. "We will, but not yet. If you run out of here in a panic, Connor wins. He'll twist it as proof of instability." "But my babies?" "They're safe," Noah assured her, though tension wired his voice. "Your father's private guards responded immediately. No one got inside." Harrison nodded. "They're secure, but this means Connor is escalating." The air grew charged, as if the whole ballroom sensed a shift. Connor, noticing the group forming around Madeline, stepped forward with Sutton trailing behind him like a dark shadow. "Madeline," he said loudly, just enough for nearby reporters to hear, "you look distressed. Do you need help?" His faux concern ignited murmurs across the gala floor. Madeline turned slowly to face him. For the first time, she didn't feel small before him. She didn't feel powerless or crushed. She felt something deeper: righteous anger, sharpened clarity, and a mother's ferocity. "What I need," she said calmly, "is for you to stop lying about me." Cameras snapped wildly. The room leaned in. Connor's grin faltered. "I'm only telling the truth. You disappeared. You abandoned our children, and now you're here, causing a scene." "I disappeared," Madeline cut in, voice steady, "because I nearly died giving birth to the children you never bothered to visit." The crowd gasped. Even Sutton's painted smile flickered. Madeline continued, "You didn't come to the hospital. You didn't ask if I survived. And now you're pretending to be a devoted father for the cameras? You're a fraud, Connor." Whispers turned into ripples across the ballroom. Connor's nostrils flared. "You're unstable. Everyone can see it." But Madeline took one step closer, her eyes unblinking. "If anyone here looks unstable, it's the man terrified of a woman who refuses to stay silent." "I well for." The crowd erupted, half gasps, half murmurs. Harrison stepped beside her. "Madeline is done being the victim of your PR games, and we will expose every financial crime you've buried." Connor's facade cracked visibly now, a ripple of real fear beneath the surface. But before he could respond, Sutton's phone vibrated. She glanced at the screen, and her face went pale. Noah watched her carefully. "What is it?" Sutton swallowed hard. "It's a warrant." Her voice shook. "The SEC just opened an investigation into Reeves Capital." Cameras flashed wildly as reporters scrambled. Connor turned on Sutton. "What did you do?" But before Sutton could speak, the ballroom doors burst open. A security officer rushed inside, scanning the crowd until his eyes found Noah. He hurried toward them, breathless. "Mr. Kingsley, sir, there's been a second breach attempt." Madeline's heart stopped. "Where?" she whispered. The guard swallowed. "At the airport hangar. Someone's trying to take your children." The ballroom erupted into chaos the moment the guard delivered the message. Guests whispered behind jeweled hands, reporters darted toward exits, and flashes from cameras strobed like lightning across the marble floors. Madeline's legs nearly gave out. Another attempt. Someone was trying to steal her babies. Noah stepped forward immediately, gripping her shoulders with steady strength. "Madeline, look at me. We'll get them back. Whoever's doing this won't get past our people." Her father snapped into command mode. "Get the jet grounded. Lock every exit out of the hangar. Assign 2 teams, one to the tarmac, one to the perimeter. Move." Security dispersed in coordinated waves, speaking rapidly into earpieces. But Connor stood frozen, shock flickering across his face for a brief, unguarded moment. Madeline saw it. Fear. Real fear. "Connor," she said sharply, stepping toward him. "If you're behind this, if you touch them—" "I didn't," he snapped, voice cracking. "I would never risk." But Sutton cut him off, tugging his sleeve. "Connor, we need to leave. Now." Her voice wasn't smooth or calculated anymore, it was trembling. Noah narrowed his gaze. Why is she so nervous? Before anyone could respond, Harrison's phone buzzed. One glance at the screen made his expression go dark. "It wasn't Connor," he murmured. Madeline's heart skipped. "What do you mean?" Harrison lifted his gaze to Sutton. "Your friend here has been busy." Sutton stiffened, her eyes darting toward the exit. Noah took a step closer. "Sutton, what did you do?" She swallowed, mascara trembling at the edges of her lashes. I only wanted leverage. I didn't know it would go this far." Connor's face twisted. "Sutton, what leverage?" Her facade crumbled. "I sold information about the children's location. Not to hurt them, just to get dirt on Heart Dominion. They told me it was for negotiations, not this." The room froze. Madeline's blood ran cold. "You sold my babies?" Sutton's voice cracked. "I didn't know they would try to take them. I thought it was political. Business. Your father has enemies, Madeline, powerful ones. They wanted control." Connor staggered back, disgust twisting his features. "You betrayed me?" Sutton laughed bitterly through tears. "You betrayed everyone, Connor. I just learned from the best." "It's AT." Reporters caught every word. Flashes burst wildly. Harrison stepped forward, voice a blade slicing through the noise. "Security is closing in on the hangar, but whoever's behind this has resources. They may already be inside." Madeline's vision blurred. She felt her heart tearing open. "We have to go, now." Noah nodded sharply. "Agreed. My team will take us through the service exit." But when they turned toward the doors, more guards stormed inside. "Mr. Kingsley," one called out. "We intercepted surveillance footage. There were 2 intruders. One fled. One is still inside the hangar." Madeline clutched Noah's arm. "Who's still there? Who's trying to take them?" The guard hesitated, as if the truth itself felt wrong. Then he spoke. "We identified the intruder who stayed behind. It's a woman. Mid-20s, dark hair. Name matches the records." Madeline's pulse hammered. The guard swallowed. "It's Sutton Blake's younger sister." Sutton gasped, staggering backward. "No," she whispered. "No, she wouldn't," she promised. But the guard continued, voice grim. "And she is holding one of the babies." The ballroom fell into a stunned silence so heavy it felt suffocating. Sutton's legs buckled beneath her as she covered her mouth with trembling hands. "My sister?" she whispered, horrified. She took a baby?" The guard nodded grimly. "She bypassed the security lock with a duplicate biometric imprint. She must have copied Sutton's fingerprint while staying at her apartment." Sutton's face drained of color. "I didn't know, Noah. I swear I didn't know she'd do something like this." Madeline stepped forward, her voice shaking but sharp enough to cut through the chaos. "Where is she now?" "In the hangar," the guard replied. "She hasn't left, but she's unstable, emotional. She's demanding to speak to certain individuals." "Which individuals?" Noah asked. "You," the guard said. "And Madeline's heart pounded painfully. "Me?" Why me? The guard hesitated. She said, "You're the only one who deserves to know the truth." Sutton staggered forward, grabbing Madeline's arm. "Please don't go. My sister, she's not well. She has a history of breakdowns. She's not violent, she's just lost." Madeline pulled her arm away gently but firmly. "She has one of my babies. I'm going." Noah stepped closer, voice low, protective. "You're not going alone. I'm coming with you." Harrison nodded sharply. "My team will surround the perimeter. We'll handle the extraction. But Madeline, do not get within arm's reach of her unless I give the signal." Madeline inhaled shakily, but her resolve was solid. "I understand." Connor suddenly lunged forward, panic twisting his features. "I'm coming too. Those are my children." Noah blocked him instantly, voice cold as steel. "You're not stepping near them. Not after what you've done." "Don't end." Connor's face contorted in rage. "I'll call the police. They're already on their way," Harrison cut in. "And they're coming for you, not us. You created this mess. Stay out of the way." Reporters filmed everything. Connor's humiliation, Sutton's collapse, Madeline's rising strength. The entire gala had shifted into a stage, with millions watching in real time across live broadcasts. Noah guided Madeline toward the exit, hands steady on her back. "We'll take the south corridor. A car is waiting for us." As they moved, guests parted like water around them, some whispering prayers, others murmuring disbelief. The photogenic, fragile woman they once pitied now walked with a fierce, quiet fire. Noah's grip tightened slightly as they approached the service doors. "Madeline, whatever happens in that hangar, you stay behind me. I won't let anyone hurt you." She looked up at him, meeting his eyes. In them, she saw more than determination. She saw fear for her safety. Genuine fear. And something else she had never seen directed at her before. Unspoken care. They reached the black SUV waiting beside the loading dock. Security opened the doors, and Madeline climbed in, her breath shaking as the engine roared to life. As the convoy sped through Manhattan, red and blue sirens echoed behind them, police racing toward the same destination. The city lights streaked across the windows, gold, white, crimson, reflecting the urgency burning through her chest. "My baby," Madeline whispered, holding her heart. Please be all right." Noah placed his hand over hers without hesitation. "We'll get them back, I promise you." But as they approached the airfield, another team of security agents intercepted their vehicle. The driver rolled down the window. A guard leaned in, breathless and pale. "Mr. Kingsley, Madeline, you need to prepare yourselves." Madeline gripped Noah's arm. "What happened?" The guard swallowed hard, voice shaking. "Your daughter. She's holding your baby over the open cargo ramp." The SUV skidded to a stop on the edge of the private airfield. Cold night air rushed in as security threw open the doors. Madeline stumbled out first, her knees shaking beneath her, but adrenaline pulled her forward as she stared at the massive hangar. Lights blazed, sirens wailed, shadows moved in frantic rhythm. Inside, a jet's cargo ramp was open too, its metal edge gleaming under industrial floodlights. And at the top stood a young woman with wild, terrified eyes, clutching a tiny bundled infant to her chest. Sutton's younger sister. Madeline's breath vanished. "That's my baby," she whispered, voice breaking. Noah stepped beside her, gently steadying her arm. "We'll get close." Slowly. But the girl at the top of the ramp screamed, her voice raw, breaking through the chaos. "Don't come near me, any of you." Security froze instantly. She wasn't violent. She wasn't malicious. She was scared, desperate. Her hands trembled around the infant, and every tremor felt like a knife to Madeline's heart. Sutton stumbled forward, tears streaking down her face. "Hannah, please stop. You're not thinking straight." "Stay back," Hannah sobbed, gripping the baby tighter. "You sold me out. You lied to me. You said they were going to help me." "I didn't know," Sutton cried. "I swear, I didn't know they'd put you in danger." Madeline's voice cracked through the chaos, soft but steady. "Hannah." The girl froze, eyes snapping toward her. Madeline stepped forward, not rushed, not frantic, just enough for the light to catch her face. "Please," she said gently, "he's my child. He's so small. He needs special care. If anything happens—" "I didn't want to hurt him," Hannah choked. I just wanted someone to listen to me, to see me. They said this would make them finally look." Madeline's heart twisted. This wasn't a kidnapper. This was a broken girl manipulated by people far more dangerous than she understood. Slowly, painfully, Madeline stepped forward again. "Hannah, look at me," she whispered. "I know what it feels like to be invisible, to scream and have no one hear you. But I'm hearing you now. I'm right here." Hannah's lips trembled, tears streaked down her cheeks. "I didn't want to be the bad one. One of those for..." "You're not," Madeline breathed. "You're scared, you're overwhelmed, and you've been used. But you can still stop this before someone gets hurt." The wind whipped across the tarmac, making the ramp creak ominously. Hannah wavered, glancing down. Her feet shifted dangerously close to the edge. Madeline felt her soul tear open. "Hannah, please hand him to me. Let me help you. Let me help both of you." For one breathless moment, Hannah seemed to soften. The baby shifted, giving a weak, fragile cry. Madeline's heart shattered. Hannah sobbed again, louder, more frantic. "I didn't mean for this. I didn't." Her foot slipped. Screams erupted. Madeline lunged forward, instinct overpowering every injury, every weakness. Noah shouted her name behind her. Security rushed. The world spun. Madeline reached out her arms. And at the exact same moment, from the shadows of the hangar, a new figure emerged. Calm. Controlled. Watching the chaos with chilling stillness. Harrison saw him first. His voice tore through the air like a weapon. "Madeline, stop. He's armed." The moment Harrison's voice tore through the hangar, everything stopped. Security froze mid-stride. Noah whipped around, pulling Madeline behind him. Even Hannah clutched the infant tighter and fell silent. A tall man stepped out of the shadows, the metallic gleam of a gun catching the harsh floodlights. He moved with chilling calm, like someone who had been waiting for this moment. Madeline felt her breath catch. "Who is he?" Noah's jaw locked. "Carter Vance, ex-Reeves Capital Board member. Connor fired him last year after a bribery scandal." Harrison added coldly. "He didn't just get fired, Connor scapegoated him, ruined his career, made sure he'd never work in finance again." Carter Vance lifted the gun, his voice cold and steady. "And now, I'm making sure Connor pays for it. Also." Madeline's stomach twisted. Her babies were caught in a revenge war that wasn't even theirs. Vance turned his eyes on her. You weren't supposed to be here. They told me the hangar would be empty, just the child. One clean extraction." Madeline trembled. "Please, don't hurt my baby." His expression flickered with something almost human, regret, conflict, but hardened again quickly. "I didn't come to hurt anyone. I came to send a message. Reeves destroyed my life. I'm destroying his." End quote. "That baby isn't Connor's weapon," Madeline said, her voice rising with a mother's desperation. "He's innocent. He's mine." The wind howled through the hangar's open side, whipping hair and loose papers across the floor. Hannah sobbed, her grip shaking. "Please," Hannah whispered to Vance. "I didn't know. I just did what Sutton asked. I didn't know you'd be here with a gun." Vance didn't look at her. His eyes stayed locked on Madeline. "Bring the child to me," he said. "No," Madeline whispered. "I'll die first." Noah stepped in front of her again. "You're not touching her. And you're not taking that baby." Vance's eyes narrowed. "Kingsley, I should have known you were involved. You always did play the hero." Noah didn't flinch. "Put the gun down, Carter. Whatever revenge you think this is, using a child makes you worse than the man who wronged you." The words hit him. Hard. But anger surged faster. "Connor took everything from me," Vance roared. "My money, my reputation, my family. And you're about to do the same thing to hers," Noah shot back. Silence. For a moment, Vance's hand trembled. A single moment. Then Connor himself burst into the hangar, shouting, "Carter, put the gun down." Madeline froze. Connor's face was white with terror, not for her, not for the baby, but because he finally understood the consequences closing in. "Carter, listen to me," he begged. "Don't do this. You'll ruin everything." Endist. Carter Vance's features twisted with hatred. "You already ruined everything." He pointed the gun. Not at Madeline, not at Noah, but at Connor. Madeline screamed, "Stop, there are children here." The baby in Hannah's arms let out a small, broken cry. Hannah wobbled dangerously near the ramp's edge again. Madeline lunged forward instinctively. Noah grabbed her. Security shouted. Connor stumbled backward, and then Vance's hand steadied. His finger tightened on the trigger. Connor Reeves, this is your payment. A single gunshot exploded through the hangar. Madeline froze. Everyone screamed. Hannah dropped to her knees, and Connor fell. But before anyone could react, before Madeline could even register where the bullet landed, Hannah looked up with wild, terrified eyes and screamed one sentence that froze the blood of every person in the hangar. She took the other baby. If we won of gender. For a moment, the entire hangar dissolved into pure noise, shouts, footsteps, the metallic echo of the gunshot bouncing off steel walls. Connor lay on the ground, writhing, clutching his shoulder. Not dead, not even critically wounded. Carter Vance hadn't aimed to kill, only to humiliate. A symbolic wound for a man who only cared about image. But no one focused on Connor, because Hannah's scream, "She took the other baby, I'm Selv," had detonated through the hangar with a force far stronger than the gunshot itself. Madeline felt her entire world tilt, her vision blurring with panic. Another baby. Gone. No, 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 she choked out, stumbling forward. Where? Who? Hannah, who took my child? Hannah collapsed onto the ramp, shaking violently. I didn't see her face. Someone grabbed the carrier. It happened so fast. Sutton rushed toward her sister, eyes wild. Which direction? Hannah, tell us. Hannah sobbed harder. She said she was here to fix what Sutton ruined. She said the baby didn't deserve this life, she said. Sutton's face drained of all color. Madeline saw the truth hit her like a blow. Sutton, Noah said sharply. Who would say something like that? Sutton shook her head. No, it can't be, she wouldn't. Sutton, Harrison barked. Who would say that? Sutton's voice broke into pieces. My mother. The hangar fell silent again. Noah stared in disbelief. Your mother? Your mother is involved in this? Sutton covered her face, sobbing. She hated that I worked in PR, hated that I wanted to move up in Reeves' capital. She said I was corrupt, said Connor was corrupt. She blamed Madeline for everything Connor did to me. She said the babies would grow up in a toxic world. She must have snapped. Madeline staggered back. Her child, in the hands of a woman unstable enough to justify kidnapping as protection. All the Varios. Noah caught her before she could collapse. Madeline, breathe. We will find your baby, I swear to you. But where is she taking him? Madeline gasped. Where? A guard rushed inside, breathless. We located an exit breach on the east side. Someone disguised as a maintenance worker left the premises, carrying an infant travel pod. Vehicle, Harrison demanded. A silver Toyota Camry, no plates, heading toward the bridge. Sutton fell apart. That's my mother's car, oh my God. Madeline pushed herself from Noah's arms. We have to go. Now. But before anyone could move, a second team of guards ran inside. Sir, one shouted, we recovered the ramp footage. There's something you need to see. He held out the tablet with shaking hands. Noah pressed play. The footage showed Hannah slipping, Madeline lunging. Chaos. But then, a woman older, hair tightly pinned, face cold, stepped into frame, moving with calm purpose. She lifted the second infant carrier and disappeared behind a cargo crate without a single person noticing. But it wasn't just her presence that chilled everyone. It was what she said under her breath, caught faintly on the audio. They won't raise another child in that family, not after what they did to mine. Madeline felt her blood run cold. What does that mean? She whispered. But Sutton's reaction answered for her. She collapsed to her knees, sobbing into her hands. My mother, she lost a child years ago, a stillbirth. She blamed the hospital. She blamed the system. She blames everyone. Madeline felt her heart rip open. Her baby was with a grieving, unstable woman who believed she was saving him. Noah grabbed his keys, his voice turning lethal. We're leaving, now. But just as they reached the SUV, another guard sprinted toward them, shouting, Stop, we just got a hit. Traffic cameras picked her up, exiting the city. Madeline's heart pounded. Which direction? The guard looked at her with dread. West, toward the cliffs. The cliffs. The word alone hollowed out Madeline's lungs. She staggered for the SUV, her fingers trembling so violently Noah had to steady the door handle for her. The night wind whipped across the airfield, tasting of salt and danger. The world felt like it was tilting beneath her feet. Her baby. Her tiny, fragile child out there with a woman who believed taking him was an act of mercy. "Start the car," Madeline shouted, her voice raw. "We're losing time." Noah slid into the driver's seat, every muscle in his body taut. Harrison climbed in beside him, already barking orders into his phone. Madeline took the back seat, gripping the headrest as the SUV sped off, tires screeching across the tarmac. Traffic cameras last placed her near Weston Bridge. A guard updated through the speaker. If she's heading west, she'll reach the cliffs in 15 minutes. It's now Shanskreighton. Madeline felt a violent shiver run through her. Why would she go there? Why the cliffs? Sutton, who had insisted on coming despite Noah's objections, whispered through tears. It's where she goes when she breaks, when her grief gets too loud. She talks about hearing the ocean, the way her baby would have heard it. Madeline pressed a hand over her mouth, forcing down a scream. The SUV shot onto the freeway, New York lights shrinking behind them, darkness swallowing the horizon. Noah pushed the engine harder, passing cars like ghosts in the night. "Harrison, call ahead," Noah ordered. "We need state troopers at the cliff entrance and rescue teams ready." "I'm trying," Harrison muttered, "but the storm rolling in is slowing everything down." And indeed it was. Thick clouds clawed across the sky, swallowing the moon. Wind battered the SUV. The world seemed to pulse with urgency. Madeline stared out the window, praying something she had not done in years. "Please hold on, baby. Please." Sutton spoke again, voice shaking. "My mother, she's not evil. She's broken. When she lost my sister, she changed. She started believing she could save other children. She said the world was too cruel." Madeline clenched her fists. "My son doesn't need saving from me. He needs his mother." Noah's voice softened. "And he has her. We'll reach them in time." But even he didn't sound convinced. As they neared the cliffs, the road narrowed, twisting around jagged terrain. The wind grew stronger, slapping rain against the windshield. Visibility dropped to almost nothing. Then, "There!" Madeline cried. A silver Camry was parked crookedly at the edge of the overlook, its headlights still on, cutting through the fog. Noah slammed the brakes. Madeline's door flew open before the SUV fully stopped. She sprinted into the storm, rain soaking her gown, hair whipping wildly around her face. "Hannah's mother," she shouted into the wind. "Stop, please." A figure appeared near the cliff's edge, small, shaking, holding the infant carrier tightly to her chest. Her hair was plastered to her face, her coat whipping like tattered wings. Madeline approached slowly, each step slipping on wet stone. "Please," she begged, voice breaking. "He's my child. Let me take him." "It's Brandaz." The woman turned, her eyes hollow with grief and confusion. "He deserves peace," she whispered, "not the pain this world brings." Madeline's heart shattered. "He deserves life," she cried. "A chance, a family, me." The woman sobbed, wavering dangerously close to the drop. Noah and Harrison stayed back, knowing one wrong move could send everything over the edge. Madeline stepped closer, extending trembling arms. "Give him to me," she whispered. "Give him back, and I promise you will not be punished for this. I know what grief can do. I know brokenness. Let me help you." The woman hesitated, her grip loosened by an inch. Then, a blinding flash of lightning struck nearby, illuminating a second shadow moving behind the woman. Noah's voice tore through the wind. "Madeline, look out! Someone else is here." The lightning tore across the sky again, carving the cliffside into stark, ghostly shapes. Madeline spun toward the shifting shadow Noah had shouted about, but the storm made everything blur and twist. "Harrison, stay back!" Noah yelled, rushing forward, eyes scanning the darkness. Madeline's pulse thundered at her temples. She shielded her baby with both arms as she turned, rain streaming down her face. Behind Hannah's mother stood a second figure, tall, hooded, moving with purpose, not panic. "Who's there?" Noah demanded, voice slicing through the wind. The figure stepped into the weak glow of the Camry's headlights. Madeline's breath caught. Connor. Hair plastered to his forehead, blood mixing with rain down his arm, the wound from Vance still fresh. His eyes were wild, not with anger this time, but with something far more raw. Desperation. "Give him to me," Connor said hoarsely, advancing toward Madeline and the trembling older woman. "He's my son. I'm ending this." Madeline recoiled. "No, you're not touching him." "Dozin." Connor shook his head, breath ragged. "You don't understand. She wasn't supposed to take the children. She wasn't supposed to be part of this. He glared at Sutton's mother, voice breaking. You weren't supposed to hurt anyone, the older woman sobbed. I wasn't hurting him. I was saving him. Madeline clutched her baby tighter, heart pounding. Saving him from what? Connor hesitated. Rain hammered the ground. Thunder rolled overhead. Saving him? Connor whispered. From me? End quote. The wind seemed to die for a moment. Noah stepped forward cautiously. Connor, explain. Now. Connor's face contorted with a mix of anguish and fury. The investigation, they're not just looking into financial fraud. His voice trembled. They found something else. Something I buried before the IPO. A mistake. A medical trial. Harrison stiffened. Reeves, what trial? Connor looked straight at Madeline. I invested in an unapproved neonatal drug. It was supposed to strengthen premature infants. We ran private tests. His throat worked. It had side effects. Madeline felt the world tilt. What? Side effects? Connor's voice cracked open. Respiratory failure. Organ damage. It wasn't supposed to be used on humans, ever. Lightning flashed again, illuminating the horror on Madeline's face. Noah's voice dropped to a lethal growl. You risked infants' lives for profit? Connor staggered closer, clutching his bleeding shoulder. I wasn't trying to hurt ours. I didn't know Madeline was pregnant when the trials were happening, but once she was, I panicked. I knew if anyone found out, everything would collapse. The company. My career. My life. Madeline backed away, breath shattering. Are you saying my pregnancy complications were because of your drug? Connor's silence was answer enough. The storm roared like an answer from the heavens. Hannah's mother gasped, gripping her head. I didn't know. She told me the babies weren't safe with you, but I didn't know it was because of... Connor cut her off sharply. Give him to me. I'll take responsibility. No, Madeline whispered, voice hollow. You don't get to take responsibility after risking their lives. Noah stepped between them. You're done here, Reeves. Walk away. Connor shook his head violently. You don't get it. If the investigators get the children's medical records, they'll link everything to the drug. I'll go to prison. My entire empire will burn. I'm trying to... Madeline's scream cut through him. Your empire? You nearly killed our babies. But then, a scream from the cliff's edge ripped through the storm. Hannah's mother slipped. Her foot slid over the wet rock. The infant carrier wobbled in Madeline's arms. Noah lunged. Connor reached forward desperately. Rain blinded everyone. And as the cliff crumbled beneath one of them, a single cry tore the night apart. Madeline, your other son. For a split second, the world moved in slow motion, rain suspended in the air like shards of glass, the cliffs trembling beneath their feet, the storm howling like a wounded animal. Madeline clutched the infant in her arms, heart pounding so violently she feared it would burst. But Noah's voice cut through the chaos, sharp and urgent. Madeline, your other son. Her breath froze. She whipped around and saw what Noah had seen. The second infant carrier, the one Noah's team had secured earlier, had been knocked loose in the chaos when the cliffside crumbled. It now slid across the wet rock, inching toward the jagged edge. Madeline felt her soul rip open. No, she screamed, shoving the baby she held into Noah's arms. Hold him. Without hesitation, Noah took the child, pressing him securely against his chest. His face tightened with fear, not for himself, but for her. Madeline, stop, he called out. The ground isn't stable. But she was already running. Every instinct, every breath, every ounce of strength she had left surged toward that tiny carrier skidding toward oblivion. The wind tore at her gown, rain blinded her, thunder shattered the sky, but she didn't feel any of it. All she saw was her son. Her child? Her baby. Connor, staggering from his wound, tried to follow. Madeline, don't. Let the guards handle it. But Madeline didn't hear him. Couldn't hear him. She slid on her knees just as the carrier teetered over the lip of the cliff. Her fingers skimmed the handle. And missed. A scream tore out of her, raw and feral. She lunged again, stretching farther than her body could safely reach. Her nails scraped rock. Blood smeared across her palm. Madeline! Noah shouted, sprinting toward her. But the ground beneath her crumbled another inch. She tried again. Her fingertips brushed the fabric. Then Connor appeared beside her, slipping on the rocks, grabbing her arm. I've got you. Don't go over. Let go of me, she cried. Grab the carrier. Connor reached, but his injured arm buckled. The pain shot through him, and he fell back with a groan. The carrier slid another fraction of an inch. Madeline screamed. Then, a hand shot out from behind her, steady, strong, determined. Harrison. Her father dropped to his stomach, anchoring his legs against a boulder, stretching farther than either of them could. His fingers hooked around the carrier's strap. The cliff groaned. Noah grabbed Harrison's legs just as the ground cracked beneath them. "Pull!" Harrison barked. Together, they dragged the carrier back from the edge, inch by inch. Finally, Harrison lifted it into Madeline's shaking arms. Her baby, safe, alive, crying softly against her chest. Madeline collapsed backward, sobbing into the tiny blanket. Noah held her from behind, rain mixing with tears on her cheeks. "It's okay. You got him. You got both of them." Connor knelt a few feet away, shoulders shaking not from pain, but from something like shame. Sutton fell to her knees beside her mother, who was still hysterical but now restrained by security. The storm eased slightly, as if the sky itself paused to breathe with them. For the first time that night, Madeline felt the smallest sliver of hope, until flashing red and blue lights lit up the cliff road. Dozens of police vehicles, federal agents, SEC officers. Harrison stood, his face instantly hardening. Noah helped Madeline to her feet as officers approached, storming the scene with purpose. The lead agent lifted a waterproof folder. "Madeline Hart," he said, "we've received evidence clearing you of all kidnapping allegations." "The 70 Ezra." Madeline gasped, relief flooding her. But then the agent turned, eyes locking onto Connor. "And Connor Reeves, you are under arrest." Connor staggered back, drenched, bleeding, terrified. "For illegal drug testing, securities fraud, evidence tampering, and attempted child endangerment." The cliffside went silent again. Madeline held her babies tighter. But then, the agent added one more line. A line that struck everyone cold. "And we have one final warrant, this one for a member of your team, Madeline." The lead agent's final sentence sliced through the cold night air. But unlike before, Madeline no longer felt fear. She held both of her sons close, her breathing steady, her resolve unshaken. For the first time since the hospital, she knew deep in her bones that nothing would take her children from her again. Harrison stepped protectively in front of her. "A warrant? For who?" The agent flipped a page in his folder. "One of the individuals tied to the kidnapping attempt and the medical records breach. Her name is Sutton Blake," Sutton whispered before he could finish, stepping forward with trembling hands. Her face was pale, exhausted, completely broken. "It's me. I knew it before you said it." Madeline watched her quietly, her heart heavy but not hateful. Sutton turned toward her, tears streaming. "Madeline, I'm so sorry. I let jealousy twist me. I let ambition blind me. I never wanted your children hurt. I never wanted tonight to happen." Madeline tightened her arms around her babies. "You let hatred open the door. Others walked through it, but you opened it." Sutton nodded, shaking. "I know, and I'll accept whatever comes." The agent approached and cuffed Sutton gently, more out of procedure than force. She didn't resist. She simply looked at Madeline one last time. "Your strength? It's the thing I tried to destroy," she whispered. "But it's the thing that saved them." She was escorted away through the flashing lights. Next, 2 officers pulled Connor to his feet. His bravado was gone, his arrogance shattered. He looked small, like a man who had finally run out of lies to hide behind. He turned to Madeline. "Madeline, please, don't let them take everything. I've lost my company. Don't let me lose my children too. All of it." She met his eyes, tired eyes, dishonest eyes, but human eyes nonetheless. "That decision was yours, Connor," she said softly but firmly. "You made every choice that led us here. And now you're facing the consequences." His face crumpled. For the first time, he had no weapon left. Not money, not image, not charm. He was simply a man finally learning what accountability felt like. As officers led him away, Madeline felt no triumph, only closure. Noah stepped beside her, his presence steady and warm. "It's over," he murmured. "You're safe now." Madeline looked at her sons, both crying softly against her chest. "We're safe," she corrected. "All 3 of us." Harrison joined them, placing a hand on his daughter's shoulder, gentle, supportive, something she had longed for since childhood.